Born in 1990 in Houston, Texas, Kaldric Dow is a leading African-American artist who lives and works in San Antonio, Texas. We'll be speaking with him today in depth about his public art, spheres of reflection. Hi, Kaldric. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be here.
We are so excited about your new sculpture down at MLK Park called Spheres of Reflection. I thought we'd get started first by talking about, went to school here in San Antonio, so you went to John Jay High School and UTSA. So how do you feel going to school in San Antonio has influenced your life and therefore your art?
I moved here from Houston, and it was, I really didn't get into the art scene because I moved here when I was like 17, 18. And then when I came here in San Antonio, I went to John Jay, and there was an art teacher there that really like focused on me. I was like that quiet art student in the back that was like busy making masterpieces. So she saw that and was, giving me canvases, and she took me to a art competition that had like thousands of students work from other schools. It was called VAS or VASE, Visual Arts Scholastic Event. And there was like thousands of works there. And I was like, all of these are good. And I made like this collage of my family. And it ended up winning like the highest award there, the gold seal, right? Mm-hmm. So from that point, I was like, I can like represent my family and have this as some type of art that's really appreciated. So from that point, it kind of shaped my view of what art can be, right? Mm-hmm. And so the San Antonio art scene later, I found, was like really focused on like Hispanic cultures, Latino, Latina, and that's something cool because I think in Houston is more diverse and it's not really on a specific culture, but here is like focused on one culture. Or, I'm like, well, let me focus on my culture, and it kind of got me thinking of, focusing on a culture and just making it big, So it's kind of a lack here of African-American artists that's growing right now, but I'm seeing that, I'm pretty successful in the lane of showing African-Americans just because it's not so much of it, so that's kind of the culture that I found here. And it's thriving, because people want to see it. And especially in visual arts, they don't see that much, of African-American being represented in the arts. So it's pretty good to show it.
Let's talk about your new sculpture at MLK Park entitled Spheres of Reflection. You participated in a program with the COSA Department of Arts and Culture called Sketch to Sculpture. So tell us about that experience.
Oh man, it was pretty cool. So before I did this sculpture, I was just making paintings, like a bunch of paintings like I left off that represented African Americans, and there's different series that I was working on. It's Black on Black series where I was making Black people on Black backgrounds where, the Black figure kind of popped out. And then I moved to this fabric series. And then, so now I'm working on this collage series, which all represent African Americans. And I think that, a lot of people was noticing that, hey, this guy is representing African Americans really hard in his artwork, so I think that was noticed. And the city approached me and was like, hey, can you design this sculpture, create this sculpture that we can put up at MLK Park that aligns with MLK vision and your vision as an artist. And I was like, I don't know if you've seen my work, but it's all 2D. So it kind of hit me. They're like, no, we'll work with you to create, with the fabricators and engineers. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. I can, design a sculpture. And so I came up with different designs. And the one that was the strongest was the one that's here now. It's the bottom lower half of the face, all brown face. And then the top is hair or spheres, right? Reflective spheres. So that's how it came about. It started with the sketch, and then it went to the engineers who I worked with closely on how to design the face and the hair, what materials to use. And then we went to fabricators who were actually building it, right? So the whole process was interesting to see and was all new to me.
Tell us what Spheres of Reflection represents to you.
So the Spheres of Reflection, it has a whole meaning from the beginning of the sketch. From when I sketched it, it kind of sticks to the basic concept of it is Black representation, right? From the beginning when you see it. And so the bottom half is brown, which is what I show in a lot of my art. And I wanted to resonate with brown people, right, as well as everyone, but to show them that they're being represented as something as so large as a 13-foot sculpture, right? And then the top half is meant to represent hair, which is important in the culture, like extremely important, you know, where we go to barbershops and beauty shops and have these conversations, and the child is sitting in the mom's legs while they're doing their hair, having these conversations, right? And it's just really important, that we focus on. And so the spheres themselves are reflective. So it kind of goes with Dr. King's vision of kind of looking inside yourself and viewing the world and seeing how you can change, right? So that's why I put that reflective aspect to it. And as well as having text on there that Dr. King commonly used, like dream and unity and accountability, and 10 different words that he used. So you can look at these spheres, you can see yourself, see your surroundings, but also see those words that he used and kind of connect back to everything, So that was like the ultimate vision for it. And I think it achieves that pretty well.
How do you hope the people will be impacted by it?
From what I'm seeing so far, people are going there to do like music videos and, just going to take pictures with it and, kind of going to see it. A lot of people will message me and say, hey, I went to go see it and it was beautiful. So I want them to, like, when the march, like say next year if it's on, to like go there and have a place to like reflect on Dr. King's vision through my vision, right? Through this sculpture.
So your primary media thus far has been painting. We kind of talked about that. We saw your beautiful work displayed at Luminaria this year. How much did you reference your process as a painter when you were planning for sketches for the sculpture? Was it a new experience or were there similarities?
It was new experiences because usually in my paintings, I'm using photo references. So whether I'm taking a photo myself and then going to paint it, or finding an image that I like online and then painting it, my paintings are solely based off a reference. For the sculpture, however, I had to come up with a design in my head, right? So two totally different processes. Like, you really have to use your imagination and think hard to design something with meaning to it, right? So it was just a completely different process, which it pushed me to like the limits to come up with something meaningful, but it, again, is totally different.
Is there anything else about the sculpture that you or your work that you'd like for us to know about and reflect upon?
I got into art because I went to an art museum like in middle school, and there was this, the classical museum things like, classical European sculpture and everything else that's amazing there. And then when I was leaving, there's this huge portrait of this African-American man, and he had like style. Like, he looked like one of my uncles with this nice hat, feather in the hat, open shirt showing the chest hairs, and it just left a huge impact on me. I didn't want to start doing art then. I didn't know how to. I was in middle school, but not until years later, it stayed with me all that time to start creating work, right? That represented African Americans, and it was crazy the impact that it had on me. So with the sculpture, is right next to a Boys and Girls Club and the MLK Academy. So I'm hoping that it has that same impact on children the way that painting had on me in the museum, right? Because if it does, that's going to be one of the greatest things, right? Because you're making artists for years to come, right? And they're all doing representation. They're starting from just seeing that representation that you created. So I think that's going to be the most exciting impact that it has for me.
Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to going down and experiencing the sculpture as well.
Thanks for having me.